In the winter of 1937, the northern lights shone dimmer than ever before over the frozen lands of Norway. The skies, once painted with emerald and violet ribbons, were now veiled in a suffocating darkness. From the whispers in the villages to the stark proclamations of the priests, it became clear that something ancient and malevolent had awakened. It started in the shadows. Small at first, barns consumed by darkness, animals disappearing, and travelers found days later as statues of ice. But the darkness grew bolder, stretching across the fjords and creeping into the hearts of men. By December, entire towns had been swallowed. Survivors spoke of a void that devoured everything: light, sound, and even time itself. The people called it the Black Frost. In the mountain village of Frostholm, where the snow lay thick and the wind howled like a dirge, one man stood against the encroaching abyss: Eirik Thorson, the last knight of an order long forgotten. Clad in steel dulled by frost and bearing a sword older than the land itself, Eirik had sworn an oath to protect humanity from the darkness, even as the rest of his kind fell to time and despair. Now, on Christmas Eve, with the void nearing the village, Eirik prepared for his final battle. The church bells tolled mournfully in Frostholm Square, where villagers gathered, huddling against the biting wind. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes hollow. Fear had long replaced hope. Father Anselm, the village priest, stood on the church steps, his breath visible in the frigid air. "The darkness approaches," he said, his voice trembling. "Pray for your souls, for this night may be our last." Eirik stood apart from the crowd, his steel boots crunching the frozen earth. His presence was both a comfort and a source of unease. The villagers whispered about the strange knight with his ancient sword and the tales of his battles against shadows and beasts. As the crowd dispersed, Eirik approached the priest. "Father," he said, his voice steady but heavy, "the darkness will be here before dawn. I need the relic." Anselm's face paled. "The relic? You cannot mean—" "I do," Eirik interrupted. "The blade of Saint Olav. It's the only thing that can hold back the void." The priest hesitated, then nodded solemnly. "Come with me." Inside the church, the air was thick with the scent of incense and wax. Anselm led Eirik to the altar, where he pulled back the cloth to reveal a blade encased in glass. It was an ornate longsword, its hilt inlaid with gold and its blade inscribed with runes that glowed faintly. "This sword was said to be blessed by the hand of God," Anselm said. "It is powerful, but it demands sacrifice." Eirik placed his hand on the glass, his expression grim. "Everything demands sacrifice." By nightfall, the darkness had reached the edge of Frostholm. The villagers watched in horror as the trees beyond the village were swallowed whole, their forms dissolving into the blackness like ink in water. Eirik stood at the boundary, the blade of Saint Olav strapped to his back. The void was unnatural, moving as though it were alive. It consumed light and sound, reducing the world to a suffocating silence. He turned to the villagers. "Stay inside. Do not light fires or lamps. It will see you." "What about you?" a young boy asked, his voice trembling. Eirik knelt, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'll do what knights are meant to do." With that, he turned and stepped into the encroaching dark. The world within the void was unlike anything Eirik had seen. It was not merely the absence of light but a presence, a weight pressing against his soul. The air was cold beyond comprehension, each breath feeling like shards of glass in his lungs. Shapes moved in the darkness, formless and yet menacing. Eirik drew the blade of Saint Olav, its runes blazing with a golden light that pushed back the void. The light revealed the ground beneath him, but beyond its glow, the abyss seemed endless. A whisper echoed around him, soft at first, then growing louder. "Why do you fight, knight?" the voice asked, shifting between male and female, young and old. "The world has forgotten you. Humanity has forgotten the light. Join us, and rest." Eirik tightened his grip on the blade. "I do not fight for remembrance. I fight for the living." The void roared, a sound that vibrated through his bones. From the darkness emerged a creature, its form a grotesque amalgamation of limbs and eyes, its skin shimmering like liquid shadow. Eirik charged. The blade of Saint Olav sang as it struck the creature, its light burning through the shadowy flesh. The beast screamed, a sound that was both deafening and silent, and lashed out with tendrils of darkness. Eirik dodged and parried, his movements honed by years of combat. But the creature was relentless, its attacks fueled by the void itself. Each strike drained him, the cold seeping into his bones and his strength waning with every moment. As he fought, more creatures emerged, their forms as twisted and chaotic as the first. They encircled him, their voices a cacophony of despair and temptation. "Give in, knight," they whispered. "There is no salvation. No hope. Only the void." Eirik gritted his teeth, driving the blade into the ground. A shockwave of light erupted from the sword, scattering the creatures and pushing back the darkness. But the light dimmed quickly, and the void closed in again. Exhausted and battered, Eirik pressed on, following a faint glow in the distance. The blade of St. Olaf flickered, its light growing weaker with each step. Finally, he reached the heart of the void, a massive, pulsating sphere of darkness that seemed to devour the light itself. It was alive, its surface shifting and writhing like a living thing. From the sphere emerged a figure cloaked in shadow, its form vaguely human but impossibly tall. Its eyes burned like twin stars, and its voice was a deep, resonant echo. "You are the last," it said. "The last knight of a dying order. You stand alone against the inevitable." Eirik raised the blade, though his arms trembled. "I stand for humanity. And I will not falter." The figure laughed, a sound that shook the ground. "Then you shall fall." The final battle began. The void's avatar moved with inhuman speed, its strikes shattering the ground and sending waves of darkness rippling through the air. Eirik fought with every ounce of strength he had left, the blade of St. Olaf blazing as it clashed against the void's attacks. But the knight was only human, and the void was endless. The avatar's strikes grew stronger, its presence more overwhelming. Eirik fell to one knee, his breath ragged, his vision blurring. In that moment, he remembered Anselm's words, "The blade demands sacrifice." With a final surge of strength, Eirik plunged the blade of St. Olaf into his own chest. The runes flared brighter than ever, and a wave of pure light erupted from the sword, consuming the void and its avatar in a blinding inferno. The darkness screamed, its form unraveling as the light burned it away. Part 8, The Dawn. When the light faded, the void was gone. The skies over Frostholm were clear, the northern lights shimmering with renewed brilliance. The villagers emerged from their homes, gazing at the heavens in awe. But there was no sign of Eirik Thorson, the last knight of Frostholm. They found his sword embedded in the ground at the edge of the village, its blade still glowing faintly. Beside it was a single set of footprints, leading into the light of the rising sun. Eirik's name became legend, his sacrifice a tale passed down through generations. And in the frozen lands of Norway, the light held strong, a beacon against the darkness for years to come.